some life safety requirements are necessary, and we also have restrictions in bed and breakfasts of how many there can be on a given block or on a given intersection. So those are examples of the kind of regulations I think the industry might welcome. And it needs to be tailored to the location.
Thank you, Elizabeth Beaton, and now Jim Yarborough.
Thank you, George. Wouldn't necessarily be in favor of regulating them at this very time. You know, one thing you want to try to avoid on this issue and others is knee-jerk overreact. You got a problem in isolated areas that need some attention, then all of a sudden we want to draw up regulations and make it so restrictive that we can't do anything, even when it's positive for us. Certainly work with the law enforcement, work with the neighborhoods who have experienced issues. Let's chart those, let's monitor those. At some point in the future, we may need to draft some regulations and some rules with this respect. But as we're gathering data to understand how we would regulate what we want to regulate, I think Elizabeth had a good suggestion of meeting and having communications with the associations that represent those groups. Because I found most times, those associations, they want to be good neighbors, they want to be good corporate partners, or whatever the situation. And if we show them that there is another side of the story other than theirs, we can find some common ground. So short answer is I wouldn't regulate them right now. I continue to build and see what other communities are doing, try to understand the issue. And while we have hot spots around the city, make sure law enforcement's on top of enforcing the current noise and other ordinances that we have on the books. I'm a firm believer, don't put a rule down if you're not going to enforce it. Do away with it. And if you enforce it consistent across the board to everybody.
Thank you. Now, we have a question about infrastructure. Of course, this comes up every election cycle, and everybody always seems to be disappointed. So this should be a very good one. Let's start with Susan Finneball down here. In what way, and now these are two different questions, I'm going to kind of meld them together. In what way can you stress neighborhoods and still...
The Wizard of Oz is looking.
I understand.
Sorry about that.
Professor Marvel down here. All right. As I was saying, in what way can you stress neighborhoods and still rank infrastructure as important citywide? And for the city council candidates, how would you fix drainage problems along streets such as 18th Street? That was a little long. You got it?
We'll see if I've got it. Neighborhoods and infrastructure aren't unrelated if you move past water and sewer. So like the main wastewater treatment plant is being rebuilt. But so that can go on for the whole island, well, part of the island it serves. Me, I want my curbs fixed. Fixing curbs, fixing sidewalks, streets, that can be done on the neighborhood level. Where in addition, it shouldn't just be ignored, it should be done in addition to the water and sewer. Now drainage, there's probably no magic bullet for drainage. Certainly I've been cleaning out the drains, but and we can always encourage them and call and report particularly bad spots. But if it's an area where the actual pipes are old and too small to carry the quantity of water, it could be a long haul before the drainage is completely fixed.
Thank you, Susan. Craig Brown.
Well, infrastructure, needless to say, is a vital aspect of neighborhood development. When we talk about bringing families back to this island, when we talk about improving and getting more individuals to live on this island, to work on this island, infrastructure is a vital part of that. We need to set a plan for our infrastructure improvements. It's been my experience that infrastructure has been a hit and miss on those areas that maybe complain the loudest and it draws attention, then we start moving in that direction. I think it's time that we set a plan for infrastructure improvements for these neighborhoods, and then we need to see what the funding is for that. We have general funds, we have other mechanisms, and we have the 4B sales tax through the Industrial Development Corporation. I happen to serve on that corporation. This year we gave $1.2 million to neighborhood improvements. That needs to be increased from the IDC committee. So we need to put a plan together that we work through systematically for this infrastructure improvements, and then we need to start looking at funding for this. We also need to have code compliance, and I'm going to be very honest, the city needs to step up and do what they're supposed to do. We need to clean these gutters. We need to come out and clean these curbs. We need to get this grass out of here and these leaves. We have, meaning the city has a responsibility that we need to meet also. How can we ask the citizens to join us when the city doesn't do their part? We need to step up and make sure the city is your partner in this.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. Now Richard Beatty.
This is one of the reasons I believe so much in the district representation. I think that the people in particular districts are best able to determine what kind of infrastructure problems they have, which should take priority. I think, again, the city has been neglectful in this area and not prioritized it. We years removed from Hurricane Ike, and we still have the residual problems that we had immediately after Ike. I'm a firm believer that the people of this city can do whatever it is that needs to be done. And as far as the responsibility of the city council, I think if they would take more interest in what is happening in these areas, then we could figure out a way to get things done. Drainage, signage for safety, all these kind of things are neighborhood problems, and in each neighborhood they may be a little bit different, but that's why I think the city council representative that you have as a vociferous advocate for the problems of the district as well as the problems of the city is so important. And I think that's why you need to elect a council person that understands this and that's willing to stand up for District 2 in these matters, as well as address the matters throughout the city. The drainage north of Broadway, over by Church Street, you'll never be able to build suitable anything over there unless we take care of those drainage problems. That's District 1's problems. In District 2, we have a particular set of problems that we need to be addressing right here in our district. And I think that if we raise our voices, yeah, a lot of times the loudest wheel does get the oil. So you need a vociferous and dedicated advocate for District 2 at the county level.
Thank you, Mr. Beatty. And now we're over here to the potential mayor candidates. Let's have Don Maffridge.
I know this one works. One of the first things we did was to take a survey in the community about what the primary concerns were. And surprisingly enough or not, streets came out to be the very biggest issue that the largest number of people identified that needed to be corrected by the city. Let me kind of say this to you because I chair the city finance committee. The money's there to fix the streets, or a substantial part of the streets. Surprise you, huh? Well, let me tell you something else. It's the ability of the city to get it done. The city, within its own capability, is very limited. And what we have tried to recommend to council over many years is to get a system in place where we can contract out to contractors to do what's needed to be done, that what the city cannot do. And as your mayor, I certainly am going to pursue this very vigorously in order to get things done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Maffridge. And now Elizabeth Beaton.
Can you hear me?
There you go.
mess this one up.
Our neighborhoods have to be our highest priority. We talk about how we want people to move here. To do that, we're going to have to improve the product that we're offering. And we can't have these rundown neighborhoods and expect people to live here. Galveston has a history of wanting to build something new, to invest around the edges, rather than concentrate on the neighborhoods where most of the people live. And as a result, the neighborhoods that are most densely populated have become more and more run down. Now, if we don't fix those up, they're going to reach a tipping point where it will be almost impossible to do so. And that will be a permanent drag on this city. We can do it, but it's going to take someone who is a budget hawk to watch the money. You can't say yes to everything and please everyone and have the money left to do what is really the highest priority of the city, which is to reinvest in our neighborhoods and our parks. And as I said before, our major corridors. We have to do that. And you'll find that most public officials are unwilling to face the unpleasantness of saying no. Another problem with this and another challenge is that you need to be educated about where the money is and how it's being spent. And that's something we need to do better at City Hall so that you can be better advocates for yourselves. Now, we were told this year that we needed to spend $3 million a year on sewers behind the seawall. We've never done that before. But that's going to be a recurring need because as those underground sewers fail, the streets on top of them fail as well. And this year, for the first time, we did allocate the funding for that.
Thank you, Elizabeth B. Jim Yarborough.
I'm gonna try it. No. Hear me okay? No. How about this? Can you hear me better?
Yes.
Amen, amen. You know, one thing about infrastructure needs, that unites the city. Because there's infrastructure needs in every neighborhood. Some have higher needs than others, but there's infrastructure needs all across the city. You know, I found over the years, when you get so much on your plate, you don't know where to start, you go back to the basics. You assess your infrastructure. We've done that before. We just need to pull those reports down, update them, polish them off. We need to prioritize whether sidewalks are more important than curbs, streets more important than sewers, sewer more important than water. Work with each neighborhood to determine what the issues are that help your neighborhood the most. And this is what this election's all about, folks. Who do you trust that can get it done? You know, the city has a habit of what I call start and stop. They start a project. Most times they never tie a bow around it and finish it. There's always something left undone. But they start a project, and eventually it gets done. And you know what? We start another one. We have so many projects that need to be done. In particular, if we just spent the money we had in the hurricane recovery, the FEMA PW work, and the CDBG infrastructure work, we would make miles of progress on our infrastructure needs. But what the city needs is a conduit, a conveyor system. We need to have multiple projects going through the system. That starts with procurement. We've got to change the way we procure our services. Certainly within the law, but we can do it better. It means you've got a city staff that's overwhelmed. They want to do good things. They can barely deliver base service, and now we've thrown on a multi-billion-dollar recovery projects on them. They don't have the ability to do it. They need help. And you do that with contract management. There are ways to bring help to the table to get us through this push. And this election is about who can get these things done, because we all agree they need to be done. We've all agreed the last 6 years they need to be done. Thank you.
Jim, don't sit down. We're going to start with you at this end.
Right.
Because we're going to segue right into everybody's favorite permitting. Yeah, that's a good one. I know Elizabeth will love it. This is for all the candidates. What are you going to do to improve the building permitting process?
Very good. You know, when you look at the city, when you hear or read about the city of Galveston, doesn't it remind you of Groundhog Day? Yeah, we talk about the same things over and over. These are the same issues they talked about 25 years ago when I first got in the banking business. Permitting. It starts with completing the regulations, the issues that deal with our building and zoning, LBR, I think they call it done. And so, you know, we got to get the rules that are clear and concise. We've got to get out the inconsistencies that under this section you can do it, and this overlay you can't. You know, our staff, again, a lot of it's not a staff problem. They're interpreting the rules that's set by council. You know, and that's part of the problem we have in Galveston, and the challenge that the next mayor should pick up the mantle and help from the council people is we have ordinances on our books that go back many decades. They've been refined, replaced, amended. You know, some of them we need to get away with. And some of these regulations we have in our building area need to be streamlined where our staff can interpret them, and more importantly, you, the permittee, and the people who want a permit can understand them. Some of it's staff training. You know, we've got good people, not enough good people. They haven't been cross-trained. So goes off, and all of a sudden, we can't issue that permit because we don't have the fire marshal here to sign off on it. So we've got to do a better job internal to make sure we're not holding things up either intentionally or by accident or by oversight. Again, it's management. Starts with the city manager, but we need better managers in all of these positions, all the way down to the guy patching the pothole. But it starts really, to answer the bottom line question after all that ramble, let's get our regulations streamlined. I don't want to give up the shop. I don't want to make it where anything goes, because that's not good for our city. But the rules that we have, let's make sure we enforce them and make sure they're easy to understand.
Thank you, Jim Yarborough, and now Elizabeth Beaton.
Well, there are three categories. Things that are always approved or allowed in a given zoning category, things that are never allowed, and then there are the maybes. And the maybes are what take the time and the effort. So the Planning Commission is currently reviewing the land development regulations that are going to apply all over the city. The zoning and the land use, and it's going to be comprehensive. And the decisions about what will be allowed in your neighborhood in terms of the land use and what won't be will be resolved through this process. It's not coming to this council, but it will come to the next one. And it's something you need to be very concerned about and involved in, because this entire neighborhood is proposed to be part of a zoning category called urban neighborhood. And the uses that the Planning Commission is currently proposing to allow in the urban neighborhood are very broad. And many of them will be allowed if the Planning Commission's proposals are accepted by the council without any specific use permits or other reviews, including tattoo parlors and various and sundry kinds of offices and services. I mean, it is extensive. So it's going to be